The multiverse is a dangerous place. Well, I say that. I guess a better statement would be that the multiverse is full of dangerous places. From all of the apocalyptic alternate Earths, to hell, to purgatory, to all the places in between. It's full of dangerous places. It's always changing. No more so than 38 years ago, when Trent Grayson defeated the King of Hell to win the second multiversal fighting tournament. This had been a fight for the fate of the entire multiverse. There's no telling how many trillions of lives that Trent had saved by winning. Trent fucking Grayson. I cringe every time I hear his name, and I've heard it my whole life. You know the worst part of being the son of someone like that? You can't possibly hope to carry on that kind of legacy. Nothing you do will ever compare. Legacy. I hate the word. My name is Captain Derek Grayson with the One World Federation Supernatural Defense Division, or just SDD. My team and I were tracking an anomaly in the ruins of a forgotten city. Illegal teleportation tech. That was what the briefing said. We weren't sure who they were and why they were there. Maybe they thought it being an abandoned city that no one would be monitoring it. But intelligence was. Now we were being deployed. I can remember the smell as the wasp passed over the ruins of the forgotten city. It was like a decaying scent that just seemed to linger over everything. There was a light snowfall coming down as well. SDD Command said that our entry point into the old broken down city was going to be about 2 clicks south of our target building. We didn't want to take any chances and give ourselves away. The wasp hovered over an old highway. I could see the cracks and craters under the snow in the road below. I could also see the husks of old burnt out and rusted vehicles. I jumped out the back of the ship. It was a 20-foot drop. The metal boots of my Reaper suit hit the ground with a clunk. I had my submachine gun up already. I could hear Desmond and Crier land behind me. My eyes found their way onto a decrepit-looking sign on one side of the road. It was rusted in some areas. The echoes of a long-ended battle alongside wear and tear of time apparent, with the patches of bullet holes and faded lettering. There was no mistaking what it said. Welcome to Crawford, Alaska. We moved silently, treading softly through the mess of a city. Through the mess that was formerly known as the Battle of Crawford. It felt strange being there, knowing what happened, knowing its story was part of a legacy I grew up with every day. My thoughts pondered my mom and dad for a moment. They had both fought here. They had been present when Lilith had gotten her brains blown out by Ken Sullivan. I squashed the thought and continued moving, the HUD of my battlesuit reading that we were a click and a half from the target building. I could see it ahead of us, right behind the kaiju-sized dragon skeleton whose barren eyes stared at us from the afterlife. The Crawford Mall. Or what was left of it. Nature hadn't been kind to it since the city had been abandoned. We walked right through the bleached white bones as we approached. From our perspective, we could see one side of the triangle-shaped building, its sides covered in overgrown icy branches and snow. I could see the gap that had been blown straight through the building by Tiamat. Cloaking. I said softly as I activated my suit's camouflage system. Desmond and Crier did the same. We grew closer and closer. I could feel the occasional crunching of bones under my metallic boots as we made our way through the graveyard that was once the mall's parking lot. The wind blew gently against my armor. My HUD had outlined the energy signature we were chasing with a green tint. It was on the second floor of the decrepit mall. We moved silently until we reached the threshold of the blasted hole. I peered around the corner slowly. To the naked eye, the building would have been pitch black inside, but to the Reaper suit, the place may as well have been lit up like the state fair. It toggled into night vision as I stepped inside. The elements had reclaimed the lot. I could see animal tracks. The grip on my submachine gun tightened. Pre-scans of the area had shown that there were still remnants from the battle here. Children of Lilith, all sitting and hiding in the darkness. Stragglers from another time. Masterless soldiers from a bygone era. creatures that hungered, creatures that feasted on the local fauna. It made me wonder why anyone would be dumb enough to try teleportation tech around here. They had to know the danger. Or maybe they didn't care. Or maybe it was good cover. We crept through the mall without a sound. My recon team knew what it was doing. We understood our roles. We were some of the best the One World Federation had to offer. It didn't take us long to find the signal. We fanned out around the entrance of the small electronics store. We could see straight inside. My heart rate elevated slightly as I laid eyes on the man. He was a lanky-looking man, lanky and bald and walking with a slight limp. He had a spherical metallic device on a table in front of him, one that he prodded at. "This fucking thing," he complained. I had my weapon aimed at him as I moved closer. He wasn't very deep in the store, maybe 10 to 15 feet away. My HUD zoomed in on the earpiece in his ear. It did its good work, swiftly hacking the frequency. "Dr. Devlin, is it done yet?" "No, and you badgering me about it won't get us home any faster," the old man griped. The old man worked for another second or two. "Why couldn't Kaiser fix this fucking thing himself?" he asked. "Kaiser's busy. That's why we're meeting the client." I took another step forward. The old man did something else to the sphere. He pressed a button on the side. A warning went off on my HUD. Abnormal energy signature detected. "I think I fixed it," he said as he held it up. That was when I uncloaked. My HUD jammed his signal at the same time. "Drop the sphere," I commanded. The man put the sphere on the table and reached for the sky. His heart rate was going a mile a minute. I kept my weapon on him while Desmond cuffed his wrists. "Devlin? Who's on the comm?" "How do you know my name?" he asked. I didn't reply. I'd already tracked the signal from his comlink. I only knew his name because my HUD had found it on our database when we'd spotted him. He was a wanted man, mainly by the Keepers for his involvement in sending a Spirit Airlines flight to Purgatory. That and a whole host of other things, which may have played a hand in ending a few other Earths. One of those is not like the other, but all his crimes involved dimension hopping. I wouldn't learn the more intimate details of his crimes until later. "I'm not going to ask you again." "Captain Grayson?" asked Crier from behind me. I turned to the store entrance, where Crier had taken cover behind a bench, his rifle aimed at something I couldn't see. My HUD flashed a visual of what he was looking at, a shared feat if you will. There was a man in a Hawaiian t-shirt walking in front of a large group of armed men. Crier's HUD counted 10 to 12. It scanned their weapons. They were of Atlantean nature. Their armor too. It wasn't bulky. It looked like a mix between advanced and Spartan. Their helmets were like Greek hoplite helmets, but with visors. They weren't made from bronze either. I knew Atlantean armor when I saw it. My mother was a Valkyrie captain for God's sake. Those looked like Atlanteans, but I knew damn well that they weren't. Atlanteans keep their armor neat, clean. When a piece is damaged, it is replaced. These people looked rough, worn, almost like they had a limited supply, which could only mean one thing. "Banshees," said Crier. Ah, the Banshees, the worst of the multiversal mercenary groups. These guys were a mixed bag. I'll start with their leader, Erica Stein. She's bold, she's beautiful, she's ruthless. She's also the daughter of the former king of Gehenna, Abaddon. She actually ousted the last leader of the Banshees in a coup that would give the Romanovs a PTSD episode. But I'll get to her later, as she wasn't present at this particular venture. Instead, it was some no-name jack-off. I had already recloaked as I stepped out of the store. The Hawaiian shirt man was identified as Cecil Steinbach, whom the Keepers also wanted. I gritted my teeth. "The Keepers can't track this tech. We've been to 26 different Earths. We have tech that's hard to track already," said the lead Banshee. "What makes yours different?" "It's not stolen from a Keeper for one, and it doesn't need a major practitioner for two. How many men and women do you have in your organization? 20,000 at base. How many of them can teleport between Earths with magic alone? Less than 20. Exactly. With this technology, you can send your entire fleet anywhere in the multiverse with the push of a button. The Banshee looked at him. Even Earth 6606? Absolutely, Steinbach replied. What's the call, Captain? Crier asked. They were maybe 50 yards away and closing fast. They outnumbered us, but we had the element of surprise. But there was another factor to take in. Gunfights are loud. There were creatures in this mall, creatures that were probably hungry. Major Klein, you seeing this? I asked through our comlink. I am. We need Steinbach and Devlin alive. The Major's voice replied. Rules of engagement for the Banshees? Major Klein replied with one word. Expendable. I raised my submachine gun, lining up my sights with the lead Banshee's head and squeezed the trigger. The weapon barked, sending a volley of white-hot plasma out into the world. The man's head was vaporized. Crier opened fire from his position. The Banshees didn't really know what to do. Some returned fire in our direction, but we were cloaked in our Reaper suits. Some retreated quickly, running the opposite direction. Some were gunned down. Steinbach dropped to the floor, his hands over his head in fear. The gunfight ended quickly as myself and Crier gunned down the remaining stragglers. I made my way to Steinbach and grabbed him by the back of his shirt before yanking him upright. It was then that I heard the roar, guttural and beastly. My eyes shut up, where I saw one of the fleeing Banshees get pounced on by a black scaly lizard-like beast with 2 massive wings. The man screamed while he was torn apart. Shit, I growled as I pulled Steinbach along. Major Klein, we woke it up. I growled into comms as I pulled Steinbach into the store, Crier falling in behind me with his gun aimed at the feeding creature. Once inside, Cecil Steinbach was cuffed by Desmond and forced to sit right next to Dr. Devlin on the wall. Sit tight, I'm on the way, the Major replied. I could hear some growls and gunfire as the remaining Banshees were set upon by the other creatures out there in the darkness. How long? I asked. 2 minutes. Desmond loaded the sphere into a satchel. I turned to Devlin and Steinbach. What the hell are you two doing on Earth Prime? I demanded. What's it look like? Devlin replied. I narrowed my eyes underneath my helmet. Steinbach nudged his counterpart. I wanted to ask more questions, but it could wait until later. I turned back to Desmond. What's the call, Cap? He asked. Major wants us to sit tight. That dragon is getting closer, Crier's voice rang out. I could see through his HUD that the creature was indeed inching closer to us as it made its way down the strips of shops. I could see its nostrils flare as it sniffed the air. Its glowing red eyes sparkled in the darkness. It also moved with a fluidness to it. The beast was quick and light on its feet. I turned to Desmond. It wouldn't be long till the thing was sniffing around us. I couldn't imagine we'd get away with our prize then. Crier and I are going to distract it and do a controlled retreat. I need you to get them outside. The Major should be here any second. The beast was closer now. I stacked up on Crier. You sure about this, boss? He asked. I laughed softly. Once I toss the flashbangs, I need you to move, I said sternly. The command was more directed at Desmond and our 2 prisoners. I pulled the 2 grenades from my belt. 3, 2. I tossed them on one. They landed right at the dragon's feet and exploded. The creature hissed and screeched. Both Crier and I rounded the corner and opened fire. Our plasma weaponry carved and charred, but the creature had a rough hide. Desmond and our prisoners took off behind us. The dragon snarled as it reared back and breathed a swath of fire in our direction. Crier dived to the side, taking cover behind a dilapidated-looking booth, while I spun back into the store we were in. The creature didn't stop there, though. It charged forward. It took no time at all for its massive head to round the corner into the store. Its glowing red eyes locked onto me in anger and rage. I could see the flames building up behind its shark-like teeth. Its head was as big as I was. Now wasn't the time to panic, though. I raised my submachine gun and fired a volley of plasma ammunition right into its mouth. It hissed and screeched as it reeled back in pain. This was my opportunity. I cloaked and took off past it, instantly locating Crier, who was halfway down the strip. I could see through Desmond's hut that he was almost out. Crier had his cloaking device activated as well. With any luck, we could avoid the dragon and get out. We ran, and I don't think we stopped until we were catching up to Desmond in the snow-covered parking lot. "Where's the Major?" I asked as I came to stop behind the group. The two prisoners were leaning next to what was left of a car. Then came the roar again. I groaned as I turned around. The dragon had come forth from the massive hole its progenitor had created during the Battle of Crawford. Only it wasn't alone. There were two more, both of these smaller than the one we just dealt with. The bigger one was in the middle. Its obsidian scales seemed to glisten in the cold morning air. Snow was falling down even harder now, not quite at the level of a blizzard, but heavy nonetheless. The two smaller dragons were maybe the size of trucks, whereas the main one was easily the length of a bus. It spread its massive wings as it exited. Its eyes locked onto me. It roared loudly, almost like a challenge. "You've gotta be kidding me," I said under my breath. Devlin and Steinbach were quick to take cover behind the husk. I was really questioning their survival skills. They were dealing teleportation tech next to this thing? I dropped to a knee and raised my weapon. "Major, where are you?" I asked comms. The dragon flapped its wings once, and snow was blown everywhere as its colossal body was lifted off the ground. It came out of the whirlwind of snow and straight for me. I opened fire, only diving to one side at the last second. I slid and rolled through the snow before getting to my feet just in time to receive a good old-fashioned tail whack across the chest of my armor from one of the smaller ones. I lost my weapon as I tumbled across the parking lot, bouncing across a few vehicle husks before coming to a stop on the ground. I groaned in pain. My ribs hurt, my back hurt, my body hurt. But I didn't have time to wallow in self-pity as the big dragon, who I nicknamed Bertha, was coming down hard on top of me. My eyes widened as I rolled, barely avoiding her claws. She hissed. I could hear gunfire from Desmond and Crier. I pulled the kukri from the small of my back as I got to my knees, the blade igniting a neon blue color as I slashed at what I can only assume was Bertha's wrist. Her blood gushed out into the snow. I didn't have time to wallow on this as I had to roll again to avoid her jaws as they snapped. That was close. I shot to my feet in a hurry, slashing upward and darkening one of her glowing red eyes forever. She hissed as she battled me with her claws. I went flying again, slamming into a nearby husk of a car. I was pretty sure I fractured something that time. Looked like I was gonna get an Omega bath tonight. I looked up to see Bertha coming toward me, the glow behind her teeth beginning to shine red. This bitch was about to blast me with demonic energy. My eyes widened. Then came the computerized voice. "Deploying Devastator." The black bulky mech that my father described as a piloted transformer landed between myself and the dragon. A massive white stenciled 6 on its shoulder, its clunky arms delivering 2 quick punches to either side of Bertha's face. I can remember chuckling to myself as the dragon fell back a few steps, its one eye locked onto the mech with cheated rage. Then came the wrist-mounted GAUs, 30mm of hot lead screaming at 3,900 rounds per minute lit the dragon up. It retreated. It retreated fast. Being the bigger of the species, Bertha made it back into the mall. The smaller dragons, however, one got blown apart. The other one tried to run away from Klein's Devastator, but was ambushed by what we call a Kahinian spider on the way in. Its screams were pitiful. We would board the Wasp and head back to base, where Devlin and Steinbach were held for questioning. I got to sit in for this one, watching via hologram feed in a room alongside Major Klein. The room resembled a small classroom. It was cold. We sat there making small talk as we waited for the interrogator. Devlin was up first. "How's the ribs?" asked Klein. "Bruised," I replied. Klein scoffed. Is it me, or did that dragon seem bigger than our estimates? Tiamat died years ago. One was bound to try and take her place as queen. Too bad we didn't kill her, I said. Klein sighed. Dragons are already endangered. They're dragons. Did you not see the shape of that maul? That was Lilith's doing. They're just animals now. The door behind us opened. In walked a few familiar faces, two of which made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The first was Marcus Octavius. He wore a business suit and had a very stern expression on his face. He held the door open for the next guy. David Stone, head of the Hell Hunters and second in command of the Keepers. I grew up around both of these men. I was related to one. I knew them well. I also knew that if they were showing up to an interrogation, something bad was happening. I turned back to the interrogation hologram as the interrogator entered. It was a younger-looking woman, one I also recognized. She worked for the Keepers, specifically in the Hell Hunter unit under David Stone. She was also a very good witchcraft practitioner known as Circe. Devlin straightened up as she entered the room and calmly put a file down on the table across from him. "Hi, I'm Circe," she said as she pulled a chair and sat down. "It's cold in here." Devlin only stared at her. "So you're Dr. Devlin? We've been looking for you for a few months now. You know how many Earths you've helped destroy?" she asked. Devlin didn't reply. "6, including the one you called home." "I didn't know about the spores. These experiments aren't mine," he said sternly. "Ah, yes. Dr. Kaiser. Where is he?" "Why would I know?" "You've had direct contact with him, have you not?" "Not since we left Earth 6222. "And how long ago was that?" 6 months. Circe opened the file. A hologram of Earth 2223 appeared between them. "How long did it take for the spores to take over this Earth? Do you remember? Did you stay and watch?" she asked. Dr. Devlin seemed uncomfortable. "You didn't. You just left." "I told you, I didn't know about the spores." "What about Dr. Kaiser? Did he know?" Devlin thought for a minute, almost as if he was weighing his answer. "He did." "Then why didn't he tell you? You were a friend, right?" And let me ask you this. How much do you know about Dr. Kaiser? Do you know how many Earths his teleportation tech has destroyed?" Circe's tone had been neutral this entire time. It seemed like she was just trying to overwhelm the doctor with questions. "What kind of information do we need out of this guy anyway?" I asked. "Kaiser," said Klein. I didn't know much about Kaiser at this point, other than the Keepers wanted him bad, and I didn't even learn that until we'd identified our new prisoners. I didn't know who or what he was. I knew reports said that he wasn't human. "Dr. Kaiser is a strange individual, but I can assure you that any loss of life was not intentional on his part. We've found a way around the spores," Devlin said. "Then why doesn't he come in for questioning?" Circe asked. Devlin laughed. "Where is he?" she asked. "I don't know." "Why were you trying to sell teleportation technology to the Banshees?" she asked. "I don't ask questions," Devlin said. She nodded as she stood up. She looked up at the camera, then turned back to the doctor. "Dr. Devlin, do you know who I am? Or, let me correct myself, what I am?" Dr. Devlin shook his head. "You're a man of science, correct?" "I suppose so." "What is your opinion on magic?" she asked. Dr. Devlin laughed again. "Like what? Pulling a rabbit from your hat?" Circe laughed at this. "I always forget how little people on different Earths know of it. See, here, on Earth Prime, it's everywhere. Everyone knows some form exists." Magic, if anything, is just unexplained science, Dr. Devlin said sternly. That's a fair assessment. One I'm sure the OWF will agree with in some roundabout way. But you see, I'm a magic practitioner. A very, very, very good magic practitioner. And that has enabled me various abilities. One such ability being that I can tap you on the forehead and pull all your memories like pulling a hard drive from a computer. Devlin, to his credit, looked unamused. He seemed bored almost. Then why haven't you done so already? He asked. I like to give people a chance to talk before I magically lobotomize them. The room went silent. Devlin measured his next answer carefully. He took a deep breath. You're bluffing. You couldn't do that to me. I'm a human being. You and your little threesome are responsible for trillions of deaths. A lobotomy is less than you deserve, Sirs said bluntly. The doctor straightened up. I could hear Klein's heart briefly flutter. You can't fool me, sirs. You don't look like someone who could handle that kind of guilt. You're just a little girl. Sirs sighed. Why do people always assume that? She said as she walked around the table. To give Devlin credit, he was stubborn all the way up until she tapped him on the forehead. I don't think he really thought she'd do it, but she did. He didn't even get the chance to scream. He just slumped over in his chair, a stream of drool dripping from his bottom lip. As it turned out, Steinbach had been shown the feat from another room. He cracked instantly upon seeing his friend and former colleague exchange his doctorate for a lifetime of adult diapers and sponge baths. Was it unethical? I don't know. Did it work? Yes, it did. So what did we find out? Well, first and foremost, Kaiser is not human. He's a member of a species that we actually don't know a whole lot about. They have several names, but the most popular is the Vergessen. According to Keeper texts, they came into being when the world was new. No one knows their exact origin. What we do know is that they came from the same planet as the Anunnaki. There was some thought that the two species were related as they're both humanoid reptilian shapeshifters, even going so far as to wage war on one another. Both species were advanced enough both mystically and scientifically. The fires of that war put both species on the endangered species list. The Vergessen who survived left the planet and began to travel the stars. From there, the story is a bit muddled. We're not sure how they ended up in purgatory. There are rumors of a failed teleportation experiment. What we do know is that it wasn't until after human civilization began to take hold across the multiverse. We also know that they thrived in purgatory, helping the humans and rogue gods who had been banished there to build cities. One in particular stands out. The capital of purgatory, the spinning city itself. The next part of the story comes from one of our own, a horseman that worked alongside my father and alongside Marcus Octavius, Ken Sullivan. You see, Ken had an extended stay in purgatory from 1899 to 2031, 132 years to be exact. When he arrived, the whole of purgatory was in a state of war, as again, the Vergessen have trouble sharing with other humanoid species. Ken had been teleported in around the same time as Lilith. He very quickly became a champion amongst humanity and assisted in their war. A war the humans eventually won. Granted, the Vergessen allied with Lilith and she was still running around and eventually became the undoing of the united realm of purgatory. But that's another story. Ken put in his reports that they trapped the still living Vergessen underground with warding, and wardings are not easily broken, particularly when it comes to blood magic. But his notes do mention one name in particular, Kaiser. I didn't learn any of this until later that day. I was getting up to walk out of the viewing room when a hand fell upon my shoulder. Derek Grayson? Marcus greeted. I smiled at him. Klein stood beside me. Mr. Octavius, how are you? I asked. Marcus smiled. David stood behind him. I'm alright. How's the new wife? He asked. Just transferred to Volcano Squad. Long hours? You know it. Marcus laughed softly before turning his gaze over to Klein. Major Klein, I have an assignment for your team. Klein crossed his arms. An assignment? Yes, we're still trying to learn as much as possible about these Forgessen. Now, there is a person of interest on Earth 6222. I would send your team with the Hell Hunters to retrieve them. Isn't that Earth overwhelmed with Forgessen spores? Asked Klein. Marcus nodded. Remaining population 200,000, said David. Why do we want OW forces running an interdimensional operation? That's unusual. It's my op, said David. There's some weird shit going on. You guys come highly recommended. Plus, Derek, I'm sure your brother's gonna love having you around. This made me a little irritated. I could smell my dad's handiwork in this. I sighed. I knew I didn't have a choice in the matter. I could see Klein pop his jaw. We're all working the same case. We might as well do it together, David said. Who's the person of interest? Persons. It's the Gunk family. I recognized the name. I'd only been like 9 or 10 when Anthony Gunk's trial happened, after he'd been caught by the ISDD in Prague. What does the Crow have to do with this? I asked. Someone hired his eldest son to kill Harry Kaiser. I would like to know who. Now go pack your bags. We leave in 12 hours. Why can't we leave now? Asked Klein. I'm transferring the prisoners to the Keeper's moon base. We want to make sure Steinbach is nice and comfortable. But I do like your eagerness, David said as he walked out of the room. I eyed Marcus and Klein. Klein knew exactly the conversation I was about to have with my great-to-the-whatever-power grandfather. Marcus knew it too. Klein eyed me as he walked out. The room was silent for a second. Why isn't he here to give me the orders himself? Marcus sighed. He didn't want to upset you. Why would I be upset? I mean, it's only been 3 years since I even talked to Ricky. Come on, Derek. It was a mistake. Plus, you met someone else and married her. At least try to get along for your dad's sake. I scoffed. He's always been soft on him, and you know it. You know why. I groaned under my breath. Yeah, Abel's son. I know. It would just be nice to... To what? Asked Marcus. See him actually be a father again. I mean, ever since Ricky grew into his powers, he's been so withdrawn from Megan and I. I don't know. Marcus sighed. I get it. I do. Ricky was, or is my younger brother. He's also the baby of our family, and consequently, the center of my father's attention. Now, there is an actual reason for this. My father is one of the 4 horsemen, the youngest of them, but one of them nevertheless. That kind of power comes with a lot of responsibility. I was conceived when my father was still an Omega soldier. Our sister Megan was conceived while my father was still an Omega soldier. My brother Rick was conceived after Trent and Ophelia Grayson got drunk at General Chad Davis's 3rd wedding and wound up getting it on in one of the dressing rooms 10 minutes before the ceremony. The General tells that story every time I see him. Tangent aside, our father, Trent Grayson, was a full-on horseman when he was conceived. Rick Grayson Jr. was born with enough power to rival any horseman. He not only had a horseman's blood, but alterations to his DNA from our father being the keeper of the Sword of Enoch. There are theories that Ricky could be one of the most powerful beings to ever live. It's frustrating. It's like the moment he came out of our mother, we were already in his shadow. Don't get me wrong, he's my brother. I do love him in my own way. But he got to live life on easy mode while myself and our sister worked our asses off for everything we had. All because our father was afraid he turned out like the former first horseman Abel's son Paul, who went crazy and murdered Marcus's best friend alongside another horseman named Amara. But like I said, I get it. I do. But it doesn't make it any less frustrating. As Omega spawn, Megan and I may grow old and die. We actually aren't sure as we have Icer DNA as well from our mother. Ricky won't. You'd think that would make Dad appreciate us more if we had limited time with him. But no, his attention still went to Ricky. We had 12 hours to kill. I wanted to go home and sleep for a bit, but Klein and I had to meet our team in the company barracks first. We were attached to the 2nd Legion of the OWF, or One World Federation Military. Reaper team was the head of the recon unit. Our legion and 2 others formed the SDD, or Supernatural Defense Division, while the other 20-some-odd legions formed other divisions, from basic infantry to security. Every legion played a role. General Davis was the head of our legion and had already signed off on our orders, of course. Guess it helps that he and my dad were best friends when they were in the old American CIA together, then the ISDD. Good God, I hated the Grayson legacy. We arrived in the barracks. It was quiet. Both Desmond and Crier had their own suite or room. It wasn't much different than any other army barracks. It was like a small apartment with a shared kitchen and bathroom. Desmond was reading a report on one of his tablets while leaning on his bedroom doorframe. Crier was in his room. Been in 15 years. I can't believe you still live in the barracks, I said as I walked past Desmond. Not all of us have wives and important daddies, he replied, not taking his eyes off of his tablet. I rolled my eyes. Just me and you, I replied. Then I knocked on the door to Crier's room. Briefing, I called out. Coming, Captain, Crier called out. The door opened a few seconds later as we both turned and faced Major Klein. He stood in the apartment door with his arms crossed. He gave them a quick rundown of the plan. We had 11 hours left. He told them to get some rest and then ordered us to all meet in the armory to collect our gear in 9 hours. Then we would be rendezvousing with the Hellhunters team at the airstrip. Desmond never took his eyes off of the tablet while Klein spoke. Desmond was always good at that, multitasking. Klein finished the brief and looked over at him. What are you reading? Diary of Ken Sullivan. I thought it would help. You know it stops right when he gets to purgatory? I do. Have you read his reports from his time in purgatory? I asked. He held up the tablet. I'm about to. I recommend you do as well. It's a shame we can't just ask him, said Crier. Maybe ask Grayson to get his daddy on the case, Desmond said with a smirk. He eyed me. I eyed him. Truthfully, I liked Desmond. I did. He wasn't being facetious, but sometimes he didn't realize enough was enough. He lowered his tablet. I haven't seen Ken in 10+ years. No one has, I said. I already wrote on here about Ken's experience, so I won't go into too much detail. I departed, still wondering what the crow's son had to do with all of this. I made it home. It was a small little 2-bedroom house. Very quaint, very quiet. My wife was passed out on the couch when I got there. Her blonde hair was braided and dangling over one shoulder. She still had her OWF uniform on too. I approached Helena as she snored loudly. Our TV was playing a news segment. It read, President Jones meets with Atlantean Council to discuss Mars colonization project. I took a deep breath as I reached for the remote and turned off the TV. I was listening to that, Helena said tiredly behind me. I don't know how you could hear it over the sound of you snoring, I replied as I turned to look at her. She smiled, but still had her eyes closed. They approved the project, by the way. The OWF is going interstellar. And let me guess, your legion is attached? I asked. She opened her eyes and actually looked at me. Volcano Squad is the 4th Legion's recon unit. 4th Legion is attached to the scientific site of the OWF. So yes. I sighed. You sound disappointed? I smiled at her. I'm not. You're going to be a whole ass planet away. I don't know what I'm gonna do. She stood up and put her arms around me. Well, you have friends with teleporters. Come visit your wife. Might be hard to do from Earth 6222. She blinked a few times. Alternate realities are keeper business. Reaper Squad is attaching itself to the Hellhunters for this one. I could see her face drop a bit. She already knew my relationship with Ricky, and even more so about what had taken place between us. She liked talking about it even less than I did, mainly because there was another woman involved, one that I'd loved before her, one that Ricky didn't even stay with. "When are you leaving?" she asked. "In about 8 hours. You?" "We're supposed to deploy in 2 days. The science team should be there in 4. We're gonna set up base camp and get a portal set up." "What are you guys using to get there?" "Grandmaster Aisha's sending us some light benders." "That's a name I haven't heard in a while," I said. "She's quite friendly," Helena said. "Yeah, her son's a dick." "He's still giving you crap about your dad?" "Yeah, don't know why, when his daddy is quite literally the general of our legion. But, whatever." "Well, his dad's a general. Yours is Trent fucking Grayson, I know." She hugged me tightly. "Please be careful," she whispered. "I should be saying that to you. When was the last time we had people on Mars?" I asked. We talked for a bit longer before going to bed. I woke up before she did and kissed her on the forehead before I left. Fast forward a few hours, and I was standing with my team in front of the Hellhunter's flying saucer. Its ramp lowered down, and David Stone standing at the base with his arms crossed. "Reaper team, so glad you could join us," he said with a smile. I had my Reaper suit on, but not the helmet. I had that tucked under my arm, as did the rest of my team with theirs. Klein stepped forward and shook David's hand. "Permission to come aboard?" he asked. David smirked as he motioned for us to follow him. We walked up the ramp and into the ship. We found ourselves in a spacious area. I'm not sure what kind of room it was. All I knew was that I could see the cockpit, where Sirs sat talking to a guy I recognized as a vampire demon hybrid thing called Jericho. I'd seen him maybe twice in my life. I was never a big fan. "What's the plan for once we get to Earth 6222? asked Klein. I turned my head to look in the direction of what looked like sleeping quarters, where I could see a young woman talking with him. My brother stood there leaning on the door in jeans and a black t-shirt, his arms crossed and a smile on his face. Ricky had more of our dad's feature than I did. He had dad's eyes, his hair color, shit, even that exact same smile. His eyes shot to me as I entered. The smile left his face. There was a brief tense moment as we made eye contact. But that was all as David clapped once. "Alright everyone, this is Reaper Squad. Reaper Squad, this is Sirs, Jericho." He started as he pointed out the people in the cockpit. "Then you guys know Ricky." Ricky sheepishly waved. "And the girl is, well, I'm Selena. I'm the resident tech expert." "What happened to Wukong?" asked Desmond. "He has his own planet to run now. Anyway, to answer the Major's question, our sources on the ground say that the Gunk family is held up in a subway system with a camp of survivors in this Earth's New York City. Why go there? New York City has one of the highest populations in the world. I imagine the infection is overwhelming. It's because of the infection that they went underground," he said as he waved his wrist, and an oversized projector produced a hologram. It showed an image of Earth 6222, a time-lapse of the infection represented as a yellow cloud covering a blue-tinted Earth. It appeared in parts of the northern United States first and spread like wildfire. It took maybe 6 months for the infection to spread to South America and Europe. The problem with these spores is that they made their way into the atmosphere, undoubtedly through Kaiser covering his tracks. So it's in the air? In some places, yes. Your Reaper suits should protect you. "What about you?" asked Klein. "It doesn't affect me. The rest of my team has their own masks." Desmond stared at the hologram. On it showed a newly infected man, his eyes weeping crimson as he screamed and clawed at his face. "Good God," he said. "Indeed," David replied as he switched images. This one of a tower that was situated in the city. Maybe halfway up, it was a glowing red dot. "This is where we'll meet our source. From there, we're going into the subway for extract." "Who's your source?" I asked. "You'll see," David said with a smile. 20 minutes later, we were suited up and hovering over the building. The teleportation from Earth Prime had been instantaneous. We found ourselves hovering just outside the target building. The sky was dark and foreboding. The building looked rough. The skyscraper was labeled Morales BioWare. "This is Hellhunter 1. We're on site. Morningstar, do you copy?" Stone said into the comlink. The comm stayed silent for a moment. "Morningstar, do you copy?" Still quiet. "God damn it. I told you we couldn't trust him," Ricky said. "Morningstar," David said again. Stone?" said Jericho as he pulled up another hologram. This one an infrared scan of the building. Only it was loaded with bodies. Bodies that had a red hue. Bodies that had, according to the ship's computer, had been infected with the spores. "Morningstar," David demanded as he eyed the hologram. "Morningstar, I know you didn't let those fucking infected get you." "Of course not, Mr. Stone. These infected are like ants. That being said, ants do ruin picnics, and they certainly ruined my time here." "Where are you?" "Oh, you know, just hanging around." "Where?" "Relax, I'm in the lobby. The bar down here is superb." David used the hologram to zoom in on the lobby. There was a single heat signature pouring themselves a drink behind a bar. "Alright, I'm coming to get you," David said as he stood up. "Ricky?" Ricky snapped his fingers and David vanished. There was suddenly another heat signature behind the bar. The first one leaned against the bar as he took a sip from his glass and then suddenly spit it out. Ricky snapped his fingers again. David was now standing behind us and next to a man with long blonde hair and two black gargoyle-like wings protruding from his back. My eyes narrowed. I'd seen this man before at one of Owyn Knight's birthdays. Only he wasn't a man at all. His black eyes locked onto me and he smiled widely, then cocked his head to Ricky. Well, if it isn't the ant's offspring. Tell me, boys, how's your daddy?" I didn't know. I hadn't spoken to him in months. Lucifer, however, seemed to pick up on this. "He's fine," said Ricky. Lucifer said with a hand up, his eyes still on me. "Derek Grayson, is someone having daddy issues?" "Enough," barked Stone. "Lucifer, do I need to remind you why you're here?" Lucifer turned and looked at David. "It was just a pizza place, not even a good one, and it wasn't even on Earth Prime. People still died. People die every day. Hell is full of them." "Where is the Gunk family?" David asked. "According to the tracking device that Abaddon put in Anthony's bloodstream, they're underneath Central Park. We better hurry. The infected on this planet are evolving." "Evolving?" asked Klein. "Yes, some have mutated in a way that enables them to fire spores into the atmosphere. That's not all. There's this thing that's maybe the size of a house running around out there. I think it used to be an elephant at the zoo," Lucifer said. "Big zombie elephant? Doesn't seem like much of a threat." "It's not the elephant, it's the thing riding it. An alpha, so to speak." "Oh, good fucking lord," said Jericho. Lucifer eyed him. "You don't believe me?" "I do. It's just sounds cliché," answered Ricky. "Cliché or not, this thing is intelligent. It's also innately powerful. I watched it kill two of this planet's rogue gods with its bare hands." "Which ones?" I asked. Lucifer laughed. "Does it matter?" It didn't. The thought of dealing with such a thing made me uncomfortable. We found ourselves hovering over Central Park. Below us, there was indeed a horde of infected, one that stretched for miles in every direction, all aimlessly wandering, all ravenously hungry. I'd fought similar creatures before, those similar creatures being revenants. To be honest, they weren't much of a threat, but here on this Earth, these things had taken over. How? "Alright, subway entrance is 200 yards that way," Stone said as he pointed out ahead of us. I felt the ship start to move forward. "How are we going to keep these things off of us?" asked Klein. David looked at him and smiled. We have a distraction element in play." "Oh yeah? What's that?" "Me," David said as he looked at us. "Wait till the infected are coming my way, then get inside. Stay cloaked until you're underground." He looked over at Ricky. "Whenever you're ready." Rick nodded and snapped his fingers. David had suddenly vanished. I could feel the grip on my weapon tighten as we hovered over the subway. Our ship was cloaked so the infected couldn't see us. I could see Jericho staring at the hologram projection of stone as he hovered over the infected, his cape blowing with the gusts of wind. The creatures all reached for him and hissed and snarled. His eyes began to glow yellow, and then the optic beams. They cut the infected to pieces with ease. It was a beautiful display of raw power, thousands gone in one fell swoop. "All right, kids, are we ready?" Circe asked as she looked us over. I looked at Klein, who was putting his helmet on, then at Desmond, who cracked his neck. I looked at Rick, who was putting on an invisibility cloak. Stupid name, I know. Jericho was still piloting, as was the tech girl. Circe snapped her fingers. We were standing at the entrance to the subway, only it had been sealed off by a ton of debris. It looked like a makeshift barricade. Not only that, but it was completely warded from any teleportation. I turned around. The entrance to the subway was at the base of a short flight of stairs that led into the outskirts of Central Park. David had served well as a distraction. There were no infected. The battle up top was loud. Nothing could see or hear us from up there. Not that it mattered, we were still cloaked. "How do we get through?" asked Desmond. "I can't teleport us inside. We can't blow our way through," said Ricky. I agreed with him. If there was a camp of survivors down here, then that would just lead an army into a buffet. "What do we do?" asked Klein. Circe's hand started to glow a bright yellow. She placed it in the center of the debris pile. "The warding is very basic. It's like a key and lock. I just have to..." A door-sized hole opened up around where her hand was. "Bingo," she said. Ricky walked in first, then Klein, then Circe, then myself, followed by Crier and Desmond. Everyone else was either on the ship or fighting a horde of zombies up top. It was dark in the subway, dark and dirty in all the wrong ways. There was trash everywhere when we walked in, and the air smelled like literal shit. There were maybe 6,000 people down here by our scanner estimates. We didn't see any for maybe 10 minutes as we trudged through the cold and damp subway. The first guy we came across was sitting with his back against the wall. He had a whiskey bottle in one hand that was almost empty. He didn't really acknowledge us as we walked by. We found ourselves on the tracks, even passing a few abandoned subway trains as we made our way toward our destination. "How do you think they cleared the subway out?" asked Ricky as he walked next to me. "Does it matter?" I asked as I sped up. Yes, it was rude, but I really didn't want to talk to him. I could hear him sigh as I walked away. I felt nothing, no remorse or guilt, no pleasure, just nothing. I found myself walking next to Circe. All was silent as we entered another dark tunnel. "Where are the rest of the people?" asked Desmond. "We're almost there," Circe replied. "If Lucifer was telling the truth," mumbled Klein. "You don't trust him?" questioned Ricky. "Trust a Gahenian? Never," Klein answered. "Why?" asked Ricky. There was a silence. It was as if Klein was thinking. "Because until about 40 years ago, they wanted to kill us all," he finally answered. "But that was the old administration," said Ricky. "Can we do this some other time?" I asked as I turned to look at my brother. Ricky smiled as he eyed Desmond. Then Circe. "Okay," he said. Good Lord, I hated the sound of his voice. That was when another sound sounded off. "Who goes there?" it growled. We all turned to see a man standing there with a silver revolver aimed at us. He was an older black gentleman with a robotic arm from where his previous one had been amputated by my father during a raid on a Gideon-owned oil rig. My HUD picked up on all kinds of cybernetic enhancements that the man had. It also picked up on the angelic metals he'd crafted his bullets from. "Anthony Gunk?" asked Circe. "It's Tony, but I'm sure you people know me by another name too." "Tony Gunk?" I heard Ricky ask himself behind me. "We're looking for your son," said Circe. "And why is that? You think he caused all of this?" The assassin formerly known as the Crow growled. "Not at all actually," said Circe. "Then why?" "A failed hit," Klein said bluntly. "The lizard man? We don't know what that fucking thing was." "We know. That's not the information we're after." "Then what is?" "Who hired him?" I said. The Crow thought for a minute. Then he took a breath and lowered his weapon. "Come with me," he said. We followed the man down the tunnel and around a corner. That was where we found the camp. The camp with some of the worst living conditions I've ever seen. The shit smell was at its strongest. The place was just a city or camping tents and tin huts that stretched miles and miles down the tunnel. The people all looked rough and worn, like a stereotypical post-apocalyptic survival group. "This is rough, man," Desmond said softly as we walked through. "We're alive, aren't we?" the Crow said. We eventually made it to a train in which the Crow climbed in through a doorway on the side. It was the only place with actual power down here. "We're running everything on generators," he mentioned as I climbed in. I saw a man sitting at what looked like a makeshift radio station inside the first car. The Crow put his hand on the man's shoulder. "Where's your brother?" he asked. "Sleeping." "Go wake him up." The man got up and walked deeper into the train. "What's this?" asked Circe. "We've been in contact with a few other groups. Seems everyone is trying to figure out how to survive in this shit. Doesn't help that it's airborne." The Crow sighed. "You know, at first, I thought it was revenants. After all the shit I did for Gideon and that mad bastard Stein, I really thought they'd come for me, to make me pay for my sins." "Who?" asked Klein. "A rogue demon maybe. Someone formerly loyal to Abaddon. Shit, maybe even the Banshees. They don't take rejection well." "You rejected the Banshees?" asked Ricky. "I did. They thought since I'd worked for Stein that I'd be interested in working with them. I was not." "Erica," I grunted. The Crow's eyes shot to me. "You know her?" I eyed my brother. "She's a family acquaintance. And no, she does not take rejection well." "Hey, Dad," another man said as he shambled into the room, the sleep still in his eyes. "Freddy, these people are from the Keepers. They want to talk to you." Freddy's eyes got large as his hands shot to his pistol. Myself and Desmond raised our rifles. "Calm your ass down, boy," the Crow said. Freddy took a breath, then removed his hand from his gun. "What do you want?" "Who hired you to kill Harry Kaiser?" asked Circe. "Don't know," he said. "What do you mean you don't know?" asked Klein. "I mean, I don't know. Johnny was the one who gave me the job." Johnny, Freddy's younger brother, walked in behind him. "Yeah, I'm not sure either. I got the job over the dark web from an anonymous source. I was looking into it when shit popped off." "Is there a way you could find out?" asked Circe. "If I can get to my computer, maybe. And maybe somehow get internet." "Where is that?" asked Klein. "Las Vegas." Circe put her finger to her ear. "Stone, it looks like we're going to Vegas." There was some talk. Basically, the Crow negotiated that his people would be evacuated off of this earth and to another in exchange for his family's help recovering his son's computer. Before I knew it, we were watching a drone feed of Las Vegas. The city looked almost as bad as New York. I was glad we weren't going into the strip because it was flooded with creatures. They'd swarmed every nook and cranny of the area. They just stood there too, almost like they were waiting for something. Our target was luckily in one of the more run-down and less populated areas, but that doesn't mean the horde wouldn't come down on us. The computer was supposedly in Johnny's former apartment, which itself was in a shitty-looking 4-story apartment building. Our drone ran a scan of the building. I watched next to Klein and David. Johnny sat with his brother behind us. "So how'd you guys end up in New York?" asked David. "We were meeting a contact for a job," answered Freddy. Johnny nudged him. "What? It's not like it matters now. Everyone on this planet is dead." Johnny groaned as Freddy continued. "The outbreak started when we were on the way to the meeting." "A contact? For what? A hit? You were still doing those after you ran into Kaiser?" asked Klein. "Brother, I'm only good at one thing," Freddy said. "I'm not your brother, but I get it," Klein answered. This got an odd look from Freddy and Johnny. "I'm not seeing any infected inside," said David. "What about survivors?" I asked. "Drone's running the scan now. Johnny, did you guys put any warding into your apartment? Do we look like amateurs?" "So yes," I said. "That takes away teleportation," Klein mumbled. That was when David's voice rang out. "Shit." "What?" I asked. "Who are they?" I looked at the holographic screen closely, where I found several figures that were glowing green against the blue map. Infected were red. "Survivors?" I asked. "No," said David. The scan zoomed in on one of the figures, one that had been watching from the roof. It looked like the outline of Atlantean armor. It aimed a rifle at the drone and fired. The image cut out. Klein and I looked at each other. We both knew what it was. Fucking banshees. "Johnny, what would banshees be doing in your apartment building?" Johnny was on his feet now. He looked a mix between mildly annoyed and almost fearful. I actually don't know." "I do," said Ricky. We all turned to him. "You guys said the prisoners you took were trying to sell the Vergessen teleportation tech to them. You don't see the common denominator here?" "So, we need to take one alive?" I asked as I cocked my weapon. "Try not to sound so disappointed," David said plainly to me as he eyed Klein. "You ready?" Klein nodded before looking at me. I knew the look. That was the get Desmond and Crier look. "Reaper team, let's go," I announced. They both came over from the ship's control area. "Alright, I'm sending you guys in to run interference with the hostiles on the ground. While you're doing this, myself and Ricky will take Johnny into his apartment to extract his computer. If you can take one of the hostiles alive, do so. If not, well, you know the drill." With that, he snapped his fingers. We were suddenly on the roof behind the Banshee in the old Atlantean armor. He spun around to face us, but Klein shot him dead before he even got a shot off. We all cloaked and started for the doorway. Our Reaper suits were extremely advanced. They were based on the armor that the 9th Legion wore during the 2030s. The HUD could do a multitude of things. It had tons of gadgets and gizmos. For example, we had infrared, night vision, X-ray vision, sonar, and several magic detectors. They could turn invisible and were bulletproof. I say bulletproof. These things could withstand nukes. My dad tested that one himself. These were just our variants. Other legions and units had other advancements. Reaper team specialized in scouting missions. Most of our stuff was stealth-based. We were nigh impossible to spot unless you were in a similar suit. We entered the building's stairwell. From there, we started making our way down. I could see our targets a few floors below us. They were about to enter the floor where Johnny's apartment rested. We needed to hurry. We moved swiftly down the steps. 1 floor, 2 floors, 3 floors. We were suddenly right behind them as they knelt down on opposite sides of the hallway. There were 4 of them that we could see, my HUD immediately hacking into their comlinks. "Shit, I can't get Metzger. His vitals are gone," one said. "Keeper's probably got him. Keep moving," a familiar feminine voice said in response. They crept up the hallway slowly, their weapons aimed at Johnny's apartment door. They had no idea we were behind them. It was almost comical. Which one do we need to keep alive? Asked Desmond. All 4 looked like males. 3 were about 6 feet tall, while the 4th was maybe 5'2". I vote the short one, said Crier. Why? Asked Desmond. You ever wrestle a leprechaun? No? Will you guys shut up? We're taking the short one. Now open fire. We did as told. I shot one in the back of the head and another through the neck. Klein jumped onto the back of the short one and started to try and wrestle him to the ground. This, however, didn't go exactly as planned as the man flipped Klein hard onto the floor. And when I say hard, I mean Klein was through the floor and landed on the floor below us. The man turned to us and raised both his hands. He knew we were there, but I knew he couldn't see us. Shit, we got a rogue demigod on our hands, I said as I started to pull my kukri. Rogue demigods were a nuisance to deal with. They were right above Angry Vampire and right below Abaddon's leftover loyalists. He roared as he summoned a torrent of flames and sent them in our direction. It did nothing but set the hallway on fire. I charged him. Of the 4 of us, physically, I was the strongest. I ran through his flamethrower like spray and tackled him down through the hole. Klein barely rolled out of the way in time. I landed on top of the man. I could hear him gasp as I did so. I raised my fists and brought them down onto the man's helmet several times. The man's head bounced on the floor beneath so hard it cracked. Then I put my knife to his throat. You're a strong little fucker, aren't you? I growled. My burning blue blade cinched the armor on his neck. Klein would go on to cuff him after we removed his helmet. We found ourselves staring into a man who seemed to be about my age, only his face was heavily scarred. Which unholy gods did you come out of? Asked Crier as he squatted down to look at us from in the hole. That's none of your damn business, the man barked back. This caused Klein to gut punch the man. Crier laughed. I put my finger to my ear. Sirs, we have a prisoner. Beam us up. The comlink stayed silent. Sirs? I asked. Nothing. Stone, Ricky, does anyone copy? Asked Klein. Still nothing. That was when the prisoner started laughing. What's so funny? Asked Klein. The princess is here. Now, to a lot of people, the princess could mean a whole litany of other things. But to us, it meant one person. One vile, disgusting, evil, charming, stunningly beautiful person. Erica fucking Stein. I looked at Klein with wide eyes. Then, as if on cue, came the voice. Her voice. Hello, boys. Erica Stein said into our comlink. Then the building shook violently. I could see Crier look ahead of himself and toward where Johnny's apartment was. He quickly raised his rifle. My hut brought up his live feed. Ricky had been tossed out of Johnny's apartment and through the opposite wall. Johnny retreated with a laptop in his arms. Stone backed out of the doorway while firing his optic beams at something. Johnny ran toward Crier and Desmond. I turned back to Klein. Go, I've got him, he barked. I jumped back through the hole, where I watched as David dodged an obsidian battle axe that lodged itself in the wall behind him. I moved quickly with my glowing kukri in one hand. David turned to me. He had a gash on the side of his face. His eyes went back to the enemy, who was emerging from the doorframe. I was expecting Erica. I really was. The red-skinned demon who stepped out made me come to a sliding stop. He was covered in obsidian armor, but it was ornate. Not clunky like a Gehinnon regular. He had hoofs for feet and 2 black as night wings on his back. My hut lit up with a demonic energy signature. But this signature was massive. Massive enough to give Lucifer a run for his money. What the fuck is that? I demanded. The demon stepped forward and threw a punch at David's head. David ducked under and delivered 2 well-timed blows to his chest and hit with yellow glowing fists. But they did nothing. The demon's hand shot out and grabbed David and slammed him into the floor before tossing him down the hallway. It glared at me with its inky black eyes. What is that? I barked. That is Astaroth. Erica's voice replied on our comlink. I readied myself for an assault. The demon smiled at me with a mouth full of shark-like teeth. I'd never heard the name, and I knew most of the dukes and princes of hell. I narrowed my eyes as I got to take in just how big this motherfucker was. This thing was at least 10 feet tall. He was also ungodly fast. Who? Asked Ricky as he got to his feet behind the demon. Astaroth, my dear Richard. Or should I call you Dick? I could hear her voice as she stepped out of the room behind the demon. She was a little shorter than I was, with short black hair and dark eyes. She wore a leather jacket with a white shirt underneath, both of which didn't quite make it past her ribs. She also wore torn jeans and a plasma pistol on one hip. Not that she needed it. She was almost as powerful as her father. Astaroth, Astaroth, Astaroth. I heard David whisper to himself. Then his eyes widened. How? He asked. Erica cocked her head to one side and smiled. How what? How did little old me manage to free one of the 7 deadly sins? Does it really matter? You know it does. She shrugged. That's not your biggest concern right now. Ricky stepped forward as he summoned his scythe and brought it down hard on her head. She sidestepped while Astaroth's hand shot out and grabbed Ricky by his head and lifted him off the ground. David made his move, flying straight like a bullet, hitting Astaroth so hard that they both flew through the wall. Astaroth dropped Ricky. I'd already reached her, slashing my knife at her throat. She teleported behind me and grabbed me by the back of my armor and tossed me into the wall. I could hear Cryer's gun go off, Desmond's as well. I got to my feet. My whole body was aching at this point. I still had my knife. Ricky swiped at Erica with his scythe. She stepped and teleported out of the way and appeared a few feet ahead of him. I growled as I stood next to my brother and readied my knife. I could feel the fire in my gut. This woman, just the sight of her, made my insides burn with rage. Ooh, this feels familiar, she said with a smile. One of you all hot and sweaty, while the other glares at me all angry. It's sad that both of you are so bad in bed. You weren't that great yourself, princess, Ricky replied. You're still the funny one, she said as her eyes started to glow red. Shit, Ricky growled as he stepped in front of me, right as 2 red optic beams came my direction. He took the blow from me without a second thought. It sent him careening as I jumped over him with my knife raised. She sidestepped my downward strike. I swiped at her neck. She dodged. I growled in frustration. She cackled at me before raising her hand. An unseen force brought me up. Her eyes were more playful than anything. You and your team killed a whole lot of my men. Desmond and Cryer opened fire. The bullets were less than ant bites to her. She turned and glared, then snapped her fingers. The 2 of them vanished. My eyes grew large under my helmet. Don't worry, they're alive, she said with a smile. The people in the keeper ship we shot down, however, well, the infected are everywhere. Put him down, Erica, Ricky's voice called out. I'd rather not. You're not here for us. If you were, we'd be dead. You've made that very clear. Erica smiled. Maybe I'm toying with my food. Erica? She shot him a violent glare. Please tell me you're not going to appeal to my humanity. As if I have any left. I struggled against the raw force of her telekinesis. Our father thought so, and now he has an extra scar. Kill her, Ricky, I growled. Erica smiled at me, then Ricky. He won't do it. He still hasn't moved on to his consolation prize like you have. Isn't that right, Richard? I could see a flash of anger in Ricky's eyes now. He readied his scythe. That was when her finger shot to her earpiece. She then smiled at me. I suddenly fell to the floor. Well, it seems we have what we came for, she said as she looked over the both of us. Oh, don't look so down. Like you said, If I wanted you dead, you'd be dead. The infected, however, well, have fun. Erica snapped her fingers and vanished. Desmond? Crier? Where are you? I instantly said into my comms. We're across the street on a rooftop. Desmond responded. The ship went down a couple blocks east. I'm going to check for survivors. David said onto comms. Ricky and I started to make our way toward the stairwell, where we found Klein with the prisoner and Johnny. We could hear the infected coming up the stairway below us. Ricky teleported us up to the rooftop, where we could hear, see, and smell the creatures surrounding the building. This was the bulk of the Las Vegas outbreak. Klein had to put the prisoner's mask back on to keep them from breathing any Ferguson spores. What's the plan for the ship being down? I asked. I haven't practiced that one yet. If I try, we could end up somewhere worse, Ricky said. I rolled my eyes. Then came David's voice. Team is recovered. Heading to you, he said. They were suddenly on the rooftop with us, Jericho supporting Selena, who looked as if she'd broken her ankle. Can you teleport us out? I asked David. Not off this earth, he said as he looked at Lucifer. Lucifer stood there with his arms crossed, almost like he wasn't paying attention to the conversation. It took him a second to notice we were all looking at him. What? He asked. Can you teleport us out of here? Asked David. Yeah? Why? Lucifer? David barked. Okay. Lucifer snapped his fingers. We found ourselves standing before an obsidian throne where Lucifer sat looking bored as all hell. Are we in Gehenna? I asked. Yep, Lucifer answered. You know, we could have used your help with Astaroth, David said. Lucifer raised a brow. Astaroth was there. Did you not hear us on comms? Comms were jammed, Mr. Stone, Ricky said. The throne room fell silent. How did Astaroth get out? Asked David. Lucifer rubbed his chin for a moment. The Ferguson, and now one of the 7 deadly sins. This is strange. Here's another question. What was Erica after in your apartment? Desmond asked as he turned to Johnny. I don't know, Johnny replied as he held up a small flash drive. We have all the data from my computer. I know, said Anthony. All eyes were on him now. The family safe had a vial of Abaddon's blood. I bet it's gone now. Why would she need Abaddon's blood? I asked. When the Banshees were meeting with the doctors, they mentioned teleporting an entire fleet. You have to wonder how ambitious Erica actually is. I mean, Abaddon had an entire army that was trillions strong. Then, when the Ant bested him, they just vanished. I've been trying to find them, but... Lucifer said. We'd all heard the stories about the Black Pyramids and the Leviathan that Abaddon had created before his demise. My father had tried finding them to no avail. We knew what they were full of. We knew they were a threat to Earth Prime. We also knew that the Lazarus crawlers inside them were uncontrollable by anyone but Abaddon. How did you guys even get a vial of Abaddon's blood? Asked David. He gave it to me before he left for the tournament. We were supposed to use it to clone him. Guess that never happened? You don't think? Asked Ricky. It wouldn't work. Amonu absorbed his soul. That's what we think, right? I asked. She could, in theory, use his blood to control that army and use those still loyal to him to fill those fresh Omega bodies he left behind. Lucifer said bluntly. David looked at Lucifer. Would Lilith know where the pyramids are? He asked. Yeah, but she won't be telling us. We could have Circe fry her brain a bit. I could see Lucifer's shoulders slump a bit. That wouldn't work. And why is that? David asked. Well, Lucifer started. Lucifer? David asked again. Where is your ex-wife? Lucifer looked down at the floor. I'm not. I don't actually know. Now I could see David's shoulders slump. You've got to be kidding me, I heard Ricky bark. When did she escape? asked David. When the Fugesson came through. They freed her? I asked. I believe so. And you let one loose afterwards? You rewarded it by letting it feed on the entire staff of a pizzeria? That one didn't have any information. And what makes you think that? Because I fried its brain after I fed it. You forget, Mr. Stone. I was there when the same magic your witch here uses was written. So, the Fugesson came to Hell and freed the Queen. While doing so, they tried to sell teleportation tech to the daughter of Abaddon, who now just happens to have a vial of his blood, which may or may not enable her to use one of the largest army of monstrosities in the history of the multiverse, asked David. There's a few other things peppered in, but that's the gist, Lucifer said. I need to get with the horseman, David said. Yeah, about that, Lucifer said. We were all looking at him now. Well, you see, the 7 deadly sins were imprisoned in 7 different prisons by the horseman, with a series of blood magic and other kinds of spells. Now, I'm an expert in blood magic, and I know that you all know just enough about it to get by. So, riddle me this. What does it take to break a blood magic spell? The creator either has to die or has to undo it. Lucifer raised a brow. Shit, said David. What? Asked Ricky. Erica hasn't killed any horsemen lately. Does that mean someone's helping her? I asked. A horseman? Help her? It has to be, David answered softly. I didn't buy it. None of the horsemen I knew would even touch her. Not after what she did to my dad. Not after what she did to Ricky and I. My eyes fell on Ricky. Then a realization hit me. He still had feelings for her. Could he have? No, he wouldn't dare. Would he? My thought process was interrupted by Lucifer, who was looking at our prisoner. Let's ask him, Lucifer suggested. No, Klein barked. Why not? Asked David. He needs proper interrogation, not one conducted down here, especially with the incompetence this realm has displayed by letting the most dangerous woman in the multiverse escape. I'll pretend like I didn't hear that, said Lucifer. It's just a questioning, said David. The answer is no, said Klein. I think I'm the ranking officer here, David responded in a more assertive tone. Klein looked at me, then David. Then he exhaled. I could hear his heart rate quicken for a minute. Fine. Try not to kill him. We have extra bodies, said Lucifer. Klein pulled the man's helmet off. David got face to face with him. What's your name, son? He asked. The man smiled. I ain't telling you shit. That's a ballsy thing to say in front of the King of Hell, David replied with a smile. You can't fry my brain yet. I'll take my chances. David nodded. Okay, is Erica working with a horseman? He asked. I ain't telling you shit, he repeated. Is she working with Lilith? Asked David. The man smiled and shook his head. Circe had circled behind him. I could see her staring at David. I could see Desmond fiddling with the man's helmet. What are you doing? Asked Klein. Atlantean suits record everything like ours do, right? Give it to me, Desmond said as he touched a few buttons. Nothing happened. Klein very quickly took it from him and pressed a few buttons himself. The next thing I knew, a holographic projector of a video feed was displayed in front of the group. On it was Erica standing at the safe with the vial of crimson liquid. That confirmed Tony's theory, muttered David. Klein rewound it some more. We suddenly found ourselves staring at another image. This one of Erica and another familiar figure, Dr. Harry Kaiser. They were standing inside what looked like a disheveled living room. What do we get out of all this? Asked Kaiser. You want your people out? Granny Lilith wants the realm. Lilith wants to be worshipped, but she is not our goddess. Erica smiled charmingly. You think your goddess wouldn't approve? Kaiser chuckled softly. I think my goddess would appreciate the blood spilled. Then we have a deal? She asked. Dr. Kaiser thought for a moment. For the last 100 years or so, I've been going from dimension to dimension searching for a way around the gunslinger's warding. My people waste away while he and his crew get to roam the multiverse. And for what? All we did was what is in our nature. If this gets them out, if it sets them free, then we shall help you. Again, we called it, but that still left more unanswered questions. I growled under my breath. My head hurt. Erica had to know we'd interrogate the prisoner. She had to know we'd watch the footage. So what exactly was she up to? I could hear David exhale. We need to get back to base, he said softly. I could tell by his tone that he wasn't looking forward to the task at hand. I wasn't either. My eyes fell on Ricky. I was admittedly worried. I knew that when it came to Erica, he was compromised enough. But I honestly didn't think he'd help her let out the first generals of Lucifer. I guess I better go into detail what exactly the 7 deadly sins are. I would actually learn all this when we got back to base. Think about all the angels that fell with Lucifer. Now take the 7 most dangerous ones and make them generals in the first Gehennian War. During this war, these 7 were all still in their angelic bodies, but they mutated them with dark magic. And this was early primordial dark magic, not of the Gehennian kind. This is dark magic from when the world was new, from when Amonu schemed and played brother against brother. One of these guys could take out an entire planet with just one punch. So why didn't the horsemen kill them? Well, Gehenna is a fickle thing. When you kill a demon, usually its essence is sent back to hell and put in another body, which is usually fine. It can take years for a demon to make it back to wherever the battle is. Unless it's one of the 7. It wasn't only their angelic bodies that were, but their souls as well. I'm sure you're thinking, well, if these guys are so powerful, why didn't Abaddon try to use them? Abaddon was allegedly terrified of them. These guys were fiercely loyal to Lucifer, until Lucifer and Lilith left them locked away. Now, these guys were imprisoned in 7 different locations. We knew one was out. We'd placed entire companies of guards at the other 6. That being said, if a horseman was really involved, those guys wouldn't stand a chance. But then again, which horseman could it possibly be? My father wouldn't. Marcus wouldn't. Ken Sullivan had been MIA for years. That left Abel and technically Ricky. But Ricky wasn't that stupid, right? And Abel? Abel's a primordial. There's nothing left to gain by betraying us, and that was about the least of our problems. We also had Lilith to deal with. Lilith was, predictably, top priority. Marcus couldn't stress that enough during our debriefing. Marcus also couldn't believe how badly Lucifer fucked up. Reaper Squad was now assigned to the Banshee prisoner that Circe was in the process of interrogating. We also had Desmond going through the rest of the video and audio files on the man's helmet. This was a shit show. I groaned as we watched Circe pick and prod at the man with questions. Klein sat next to me, Crier on the other side of him. He's not gonna talk. We should fry his ass, I said calmly. You know the rules, Derek. Everyone gets a chance. Klein replied. We gave him a chance when we were in hell, Crier added. Circe asked the exact same questions that we'd asked in Lucifer's throne room. She received the exact same answers. You think Desmond is having better luck? I asked. He's got hundreds of hours of footage to go through, Klein said. Gonna be a late night, added Crier. I grunted under my breath. That was when the voice came from behind me. Derek, a word? I turned to see Marcus standing there. Oh, someone's in trouble, Crier joked. I followed Marcus out of the room. The hallway was busy. Marcus took a deep breath. Walk with me. I did. What's this about? I asked. This looks bad. A horseman potentially being involved? I'm calling a meeting, but you don't know who's actually going to show up. Your father will. Abel may. Ken, I don't know. Honestly, I've seen him maybe 3 times since Megan died. You don't think he's responsible? I asked. No, he hates Kaiser with a passion. He'd never throw his lot in with anyone associated with him. Then who could it be? I asked. That's why we're out here. I sighed as I realized he'd had the same thought I did. Ricky? I don't want to say it out loud, Marcus said. I feel bad for even suggesting, but he's always had a soft spot for Erica. Everyone here had a soft spot for Erica. Some fools we were, I said. Marcus sighed. It's not your fault, and for what it's worth, I do think she had good intentions at first. She didn't want to be her father. No, you could have fooled me. Do you think there's a chance that Ricky is compromised? I took a deep breath. Did I? I wasn't sure. But at the same time, he stepped in front of her optic beams to save me. I had to give him credit for that. He tried to talk her down, and he seemed genuine when he did so. Was it a trick? A farce? No, Ricky wasn't that smart. As much as I disliked my brother, he was still, well, my brother. I don't want to say yes, but I can't actually say no, I replied. Marcus took a deep breath. Shit, he mumbled. So what now? I asked. Well, I have David looking into Ricky's past whereabouts, checking his personal files. David has vouched for your brother though. There are only 2 other men on this planet I trust as much as I do him. Do we know which horseman actually cast the spell? All of them. Any horseman should be able to break it. Or they could try and make a run at Abel, being the last horseman from that era standing. I don't think they're that stupid. He let that statement hang in the air for a moment. I knew the 2 men he was referring to. One was Abel, and the other was my father. I only nodded before turning and walking back toward the interrogation room. When I arrived, Klein told me that they were stopping for today and that they were in fact frying the man's brains the following morning. He seemed relieved, which I remember feeling odd. He'd seemed against it earlier, but then again, we'd gotten to do our proper interrogation. I sighed. I wished we'd do it now, but it had been a long day. I went back to the barracks to check on Desmond. I can remember using my fingerprint to open the door. Desmond was tinkering away with the helmet at his desk, a small tablet sitting next to him producing a holographic display. I don't know how Klein did this so easily, he said as he eyed me. I took a deep breath. He's the major for a reason, I guess. I leaned against the bunk next to his desk. How much have you gotten through? Doc, I'm struggling with the encryption for anything older than the last 42 hours. Our suits couldn't hack it like we could their comms. I have to be hardwired in. Man, I wish Crier wasn't at his girlfriend's tonight. I could use his help. Damn, I said. He sighed. It's whatever. Why you here? You checking up on me? I'm checking up on the intel. If there's a horseman involved, I'd like to rule a few out. Well, I don't think you'll be able to do any of that tonight. Go home, get some rest. You sure? I asked. Yeah, tell Helena I said hi. Even if she wasn't headed to Mars, I still wouldn't. Desmond laughed. I'll see you tomorrow, bud, I said as I started to walk out. I went home to my empty apartment and showered. Then I went to bed. I don't exactly remember what I dreamed of. I know waking up the next day was typical for all reasons other than my wife being on mission. I got up, got ready, and went to work in a good mood. We were gonna get some actual intel today. Fort Quintus was a sprawling facility in what was formerly known as the backwoods of Georgia. The base consisted of 25 buildings over a 10-mile radius. I reported to the barracks, where I was supposed to meet the rest of Reaper team. Instead, I was greeted by police tape and an entire squad of OWF military police running around, 2 of which wouldn't let me in. My heart raced. I couldn't even see inside. "What happened?" I asked. Then came the voice. "Derek, I need you to come with me," Klein said. I turned and looked at him. He had a calm yet distant look in his eyes. My heart dropped. "What happened?" I asked. "Derek, let's go," he said a little more firmly. I started to step his way when I noticed one of the MPs to my left was staring me down, with his hand resting on his service pistol. I stopped and looked at him. He was sweating. I turned to see two more doing the same thing. Something clicked. I was the last person in there other than Desmond. My fingerprint was registered. "Klein, where's Desmond?" "You don't know already? Derek, you killed him." The words sucked the air out of me. My whole body went numb. Desmond was dead. What the hell? No, What? I asked. "Derek, come with me. We can get this all sorted out." My heart rate increased. I was only in fatigues. All my weapons were in the armory across base. I gritted my teeth and put my hands up. "Where's Marcus?" I asked. "He'll be there shortly." I was led into an interrogation room where Circe waited for me with a grim look on her face. "Hello, Derek," she said as I was sat down and placed in a chair across from her. "Circe?" I greeted. "So I'm guessing I was the last person to see Desmond before he was killed. The barracks have surveillance. Check him. I left at about 10. "You did. Then you went and disabled the security feed to both the barracks and the brick, then came back and killed Desmond and destroyed the helmet before making your way to the brick." "The brick?" I asked. She showed me a holographic wrist-mounted image of the prisoner slumped over while sitting on his cell's toilet. Blood was everywhere. "What the fuck?" I asked softly. Circe raised a brow at that. "Why do you guys think it was me?" I asked. The image switched to one of me dressed in all black clothing, walking towards the generator room. I laughed under my breath. "I don't see how this is funny," Circe stated. "I mean, come on, the enemy is full of shapeshifters." "Yeah, we know. That's why we're going to be taking a sample of your blood. We've also been scanning you for possession spores. Haven't found any. DNA scans say you're human." "Then why do you need a blood sample?" I asked. "Phagesson can mimic things on a cellular level. So, well, their cells have regenerative qualities, at least according to Lucifer. I'm an Omega spawn. Mine do as well." "We have a way around that," she said. "Okay," I said as I held out my arm. Circe looked at Klein, who came around with the needle and vials. He looked me in the eyes as he stuck me. "We're gonna get you through this, man." "I'm sure," I said. He took the blood and then left. "He has a lot of confidence in you," Circe said. "How long will the blood test take?" I asked. "A few hours. Then we'll continue our interrogation. For what it's worth, I don't think Derek would do something like this, so if you turn out to be a Phagesson, well, I may not even get to deal with you before the old ISDD guys come out of the woodwork." "Just run your fucking test," I barked. I sat in the room, my head reeling hard. I didn't say a word. I waited for what seemed like forever. I was human, and I had spent my night sleeping at my house. It was cold in the interrogation room, cold and way too fucking bright. The light reflected off the whited out walls. The glare in the room made my head hurt. This was by design. I'm not sure how long it took for Marcus to come walking in. I could tell by his eyes that something was off. He only stood across from the table and scowled down at me. "The blood test done yet?" I asked. He didn't reply. He only glared. I could feel my heart rate escalating. "What did you do to Derek?" he asked. "I am Derek." "No," he whispered. I was confused. I was so very, very confused. "You took the blood. I am Derek." "The blood tests came back, and you're one of them," said Marcus. I looked at the ground as I tried to rack my brain. This couldn't be right. What the hell was happening? "Look at me," he said. I looked at him. "I'm not. Save it. You're lucky we're not frying your brains yet. You're lucky I'm not allowed to torture you in the way you used to do in the Legions. Derek was a good kid, and you did something to him. I'm gonna find out what. We can do it the easy way, or the easier way." "I am Derek. You know me. You've known me my whole life," I shouted. He stood up and sneered. "Then explain the blood test." I don't know. My brain hurt, trying to think. "Take another one," I said, holding out my arm. Marcus thought for a moment, then turned and walked out. I was in there maybe another 20 minutes, my mind spinning. Then the door opened. In walked General Chad Davis. "So, you killed my boy, and if I were to guess, you probably killed Trans boy as well," he said as he sat down. "I didn't kill shit. Give me another blood test, you'll see." He glared at me. "I don't know about that. Klein seems adamant that one is enough. Says you've been different since Crawford." "Klein?" I asked. Klein didn't even show up in Crawford until... Then it hit me. Klein had been the one who took my blood. "Wait a minute. Why did Klein take my blood?" I asked. "I don't follow," asked Chad. "Why did Klein take my fucking blood and not an on-site nurse or a medic?" The general blinked a few times. Then he exhaled. "That's not policy," he muttered as he stroked his dark mustache. Then there was a knock on the door. My eyes shot to it, then dropped when I realized who was standing there. He looked down at me with his weathered blue eyes and thick brown beard. "Chad, I'd like a word with the thing," my dad said. The words cut like a diamond sword. General Davis got up and marched right up to my dad. My dad never took his eyes off of me. "What are you fucking doing here, Trent? You sure this isn't personal?" "Are you?" he asked. Chad turned and eyed me. "Have you ordered the second blood test?" Chad asked. "What do you think?" The general walked out as my father stepped in. He eyed me coldly, as if he was calculating the words that were about to leave his mouth. The silence hung in the air between us for a moment. "So, how do I know you're my son?" he asked as he sat down. "What? Do you want to have a walk down memory lane?" Trent shrugged. I looked at his scared and weathered face and scoffed. "You wouldn't know enough about me to even begin with." "You're selling this real well, kid," he replied with a scoff of his own. "Am I wrong? If it was Ricky, you'd know everything. You know what? How do we know you aren't compromised?" "Okay, maybe you are Derek." He was always a little jealous of his brother. I felt a flash of anger bolt through me. "Jealous? Jealous? Are you fucking joking?" My dad smirked. "I was never jealous of that motherfucker." "That motherfucker saved your life. That motherfucker has always looked up to you." "Then why did he sleep with my girlfriend?" Trent laughed softly. "You talk like you didn't move on immediately with Helena. That doesn't justify it." "You're right. It doesn't. What Erica didn't just affect you," he said as he gestured to a pink scar on his cheek. "She played us." I grinded my teeth together. He was right. She had played us. She had played us hard, and I hated it. "Am I getting a second blood test?" I asked. "You are." "Good. That should clear this up." My dad laughed softly. "So, what do you think went wrong with the first one?" I didn't really know. I didn't know how the test worked. I know Klein shouldn't have been the one to take it. I stayed my tongue. Dad waited for an answer. "You know, we asked Circe in the next room why Klein wanted to draw your blood. You know what she said?" "What?" I said, wondering how long they'd all been watching me. "Klein claimed that it may make him more comfortable if it's someone he knows. So tell me, Derek, what do you think happened with your blood sample? I don't know, Dad. I just know it wasn't right. Trent exhaled. I have a theory. And what's that? I asked. Either A, you're off guessing and you're stalling for time, or B, your test was tampered with. And considering that Klein is the one who took it, then what does that make him? No, I said. Klein couldn't be a... The thought flashed through my mind. He was so adamant about not interrogating the prisoner until we got back to base. He knew how to operate the helmet. Holy hell. I felt dumber than anyone who got onto a plane with Epstein. Dated reference for the 2070s, I know. Where's Klein? I asked. My dad smiled as he sat down. He's somewhere on base. Said he was stepping out for a bite to eat after your blood test results came in. He seems to have given our tale the slip. That was when Sirs entered the room with a nurse. Now, let's figure out if I'm right, shall we? The test was quick. The nurse took the blood into a vial and Sirs held it up. The vial started to glow blue when she did so. Trent scoffed when he saw it. The room fell silent. My heart was racing. Blue is good, right? Vergessen blood glows red when it makes contact with heavenly metal shards, Trent said as his eyes narrowed toward the see-through glass to our right. Happy? He asked as he grabbed the cuffs on my wrists and snapped them with ease. Really, dude? Asked a voice. I'm not sure who it belonged to. I stood up. I wanted to find Klein and get to the bottom of this. Trent stood up with me. How do you figure that out so fast? You kept calling me Dad. That and I watched your mission logs. Klein never seemed off to you? Not at all. He was very against a hard interrogation while you were in Lucifer's throne room. That doesn't matter now. We need to find them before. A computerized voice came on the loudspeaker as alarms suddenly blared. Unauthorized teleportation energy detected. Unauthorized entities detected. Please advise. The voice rang out. My dad's eyes grew large. His finger shot to his earpiece. Where? The armory. Wait, there's another in the chow hall. Shit. A female voice responded. Marcus poked his head through the doorway. Let's go, Trent, he said. I followed them into the hall. Ricky was waiting for us. We're gonna take care of the teleporters. You two go find Klein, said Dad before he snapped his fingers. I turned and looked at Ricky. Can you get me to a suit? I asked. He snapped his fingers, and we were suddenly standing in one of the back rooms of the armory. I could hear gunfire going off. Luckily, we were in the room where my armor was stored. I went to work, putting the Reaper suit on. Ricky's finger was to his ear. I could hear who he was talking to. It was the Hellhunters' tech girl, and she was yelling frantically. There has to be over 1,000 now. They just keep coming through. What about Klein? I haven't seen him. I'd see the security footage of what happened later. I'll include it now for context. In the footage, there are maybe 50 people eating inside the mess hall. Most in the gray standard issue uniforms of the One World Federation's armed forces. It was a random soldier that walked in through the front door. He placed a spherical device on the table closest to the main exit and walked off. This didn't really catch anyone's attention. It had happened maybe an hour after Klein left to get food. If Klein was a shapeshifter, then this was probably him. I recognized the device too. It was one that Dr. Devlin had been working with when we'd caught him in Crawford. The device wasn't noticed. No one even thought twice about it, all just enjoying their hard-earned lunches. Then, the device went off. The camera flickered, and there was suddenly a purple swirl that consumed the whole table. People were standing now. Some called it in on their radios, others evacuated. That was when the first of the infected came stumbling through. The fucking Vergessen spores. The portal must have opened on an Earth that was overrun. The guys closest to the portal started reaching for their throats before dropping to the floor and convulsing violently. The creatures charged those who weren't close enough to be infected by the spores. What followed was a bloodbath. The zombies devoured their way across the mess hall just as MPs arrived. There were over 1,000 now, and the portal had gone from 7 feet across to 20. The MPs came in and started shooting. To their credit, they killed several, but they were only armed with pistols. They weren't equipped to deal with a horde. Or the next thing that came out from the portal. The Alpha himself, riding atop a zombified elephant. The Alpha that Lucifer had claimed had killed 2 rogue gods. The Alpha that I recognized as soon as my eyes lay upon him. He was once a broad, red-headed rogue demigod himself, one who'd formerly been a banshee before his father had managed to get him to leave. He was infected for sure, infected and buck-ass nude. But he didn't seem like he was rotting like the rest. Instead, his skin was almost a milky white. You could see the inky black veins underneath his skin. He hefted the hammer over his shoulder with one hand as he steered the elephant with the other. I wondered if this was Earth Prime's Edwin Thorson, or if it was Earth 6222's. Whatever the answer, this thing had to be stopped. It had to be put down quickly. Like I said, we learned about him over comms. We didn't see that footage until later. We just knew the Alpha was on base. That, however, wasn't our mission. Our mission was Klein. "Crier, do you copy?" I asked through the comms link in my helmet after I'd gotten it on. "Crier, you there?" "Derek, they let you out?" Crier asked. "Crier, what's your 20? I asked. "I'm headed toward the armory. The whole base is going up in smoke." "Do you know where Klein is?" I asked. "Yeah, he said he was getting his Devastator on. Why?" I turned to Ricky with wide eyes. Klein was in the armory's hangar bay, which was, according to comms, where the second portal had opened. He nodded as I cocked my rifle. Then he snapped his fingers. We ended up amongst the carnage. There were men fighting monsters all over. Blood, guts, and body parts were everywhere. The swirling portal growing in size behind it. It was chaotic. An infected officer noticed us and started to shamble toward me. I shot him in between the eyes. The brain blew out of the back of its skull. I could see the 15 of the base's Devastators lined up against the wall behind the horde. 14 were stationary and waiting for their pilots. The one marked 6, the one that had just lumbered out of its slot. The infected ignored it as they rampaged through. "Shit," I complained as I fired a volley of rounds into another infected. "I can teleport us over there," Ricky said. "And have the horde come down on us from behind while we're trying to fight Megatron?" I asked. "I mean, I'm a horseman, and you're in a Reaper suit," he said as he grabbed an infected man's forehead and squashed it by making a fist. Blood and brain went everywhere. "That's gross," I said softly. The Devastator was heading in the direction of the portal now. I had to think fast. "Klein?" I called out before my brain caught up to my mouth. The mech stopped and turned to us, raising its GAU and firing. Klein knew that wouldn't hurt either of us. Instead, it really just cleared out the swath of infected around us. I charged in as one of his shoulder-mounted energy cannons locked onto me, my HUD coming to life with warning signals. I hit the cloaking device right as he fired. The blue beam tore through the hangar, barely missing me. I charged in hard and fast, but Ricky had beaten me there, going skyward with his scythe raised. The shoulder-mounted cannon adjusted its aim and fired. It blasted Ricky. The blue beam carved a massive hole in the ceiling behind him. I knew he could take it, so I kept moving forward, pulling a plasma grenade from a pouch on my armor as I approached. I knew a lot about the Devastator mechs. I'd even piloted one during a situation in the Southern District of California. These things were lumbering hulks of metal, but they did have weak spots, particularly in between the gap in the armor plates where the arm met the shoulder. The problem was, however, the mech was almost as advanced as my suit. Almost. It couldn't turn invisible, it wasn't as nimble, but it was fast. I watched the thing's head as it started scanning me. I knew I didn't have long. I'd gotten to the thing's left and was closing in. I knew as soon as I leapt on it that Klein would know exactly where I was. But I had to be close to get the grenade in. I leapt on him, landing just above the shoulder. I hit the button on the plasma grenade as I tried to plant it. His other hand shot up faster than I was expecting. It snatched me up and launched me across the hangar. I flew through several infected, vaporizing them on contact before tumbling into a wall. I was dazed and very thankful to be wearing the latest and greatest variant of the Nemesis suit. My body hurt, but I slowly got to my feet and glared at the lumbering machine. It had turned to start walking toward the portal when the bright blue plasma ball erupted in its shoulder. It tumbled to the side as its arm was suddenly severed. I staggered to my feet. "Klein!" I bellowed. The Devastator had caught itself with its remaining arm. It turned and looked at me as I started toward it. "I'm gonna fucking kill you, Klein!" I screamed as I began sprinting. I ran faster, getting closer and closer. 100 feet, 50 feet, 10 feet. Klein's shoulder-mounted cannon aimed at me and fired. I hit the deck, sliding under the beam as I yanked my kukri from my back. I stopped right in front of him and sprang myself up whilst launching an upward swipe that lopped the cannon off. I came back down and was very suddenly blasted with fire from his remaining gaw. This didn't penetrate my armor, but it did send me tumbling as the 20mm cannon tore up the concrete floor. Dust and debris went everywhere. I somehow ended on my back. My body ached. I wasn't done yet. I started to get to my feet. That was when the massive metal foot came down out of the dust and on top of me. I couldn't get my hands up fast enough. I was suddenly pinned underneath a 50-ton discount Megatron. "Stay down," Klein's voice commanded over the comlink. "Fuck you," I spat. "You killed Desmond." "I won't tell you again," he ordered. I found the gaw aimed at my face. "Why?" I growled. "He was your friend." "He was in my way," Klein barked back. I roared in frustration as my hand felt around for my blade. "You fucking traitor. How long? How long have you been one of them? Was it Crawford?" I felt the boot press down harder on me. "I've always been like this, Derek." That made me want to kill him even more. I'd served under him for almost 10 years. He'd been to my wedding. He'd been a groomsman for Christ's sake. Always a forgessen. A cold, calculating, heartless forgessen. I growled. "No, not completely," he said softly. That was when my hand found the blade. I plunged the burning blue knife all the way to the hilt in the mech's ankle. It didn't do much. I could hear Klein growl in annoyance as the gaw started to activate. I knew that either I was in for the worst headache of my life or the end of my life. Then came the boom. The weight was suddenly off of my chest. I sprang to my feet as the Devastator went flying. "No one steps on my brother," Ricky said as he withdrew his fist. His armor was singed. He'd taken the full force of the Devastator's cannon. Which, well, imagine being punched by God. Okay, that's an over-exaggeration. The energy cannon on those things can cut battleships in half. We know. Klein and I tested it during the incident in the Southern District of California. The mech got to its feet. It had a massive dent in the chest from where Ricky had punched it. Then I noticed that all of the dust had settled, and we were surrounded by infected. There were still zombies coming from the portal in waves. I wondered if my dad and Marcus had gotten the other one shot yet. I also wondered where the Alpha was. The latter of the questions was answered by a loud shriek that came from behind us. I turned to it. The elephant stomped in with its rider atop it. "You're telling me no one's iced this asshole yet?" Ricky asked. "This is Reaper 2. I need assistance in the hangar," I said on comms as I turned back to Klein, who was still watching us. The horde had gotten between he and us again. "Here we go again," said Ricky. That was when the creatures attacked from all sides. Only they never got the chance as two beams of yellow energy came from above us. cutting down the creatures in seconds. I looked up to find David's stone flying through the air above us in 1 second, right before blinding blue lightning bolt nailed him in the back. He was knocked off balance a bit before he turned back to the infected demigod. David had cleared a path through the infected for us. Ricky and I took our chance and charged forward. The only real weapon the Devastator had left was the Gaw, which was powerful but not enough for us. Ricky teleported above it and brought his scythe down hard. It gashed the front of the mech from its chest to its groin as it staggered backward. That was when I realized I could see clear into the cockpit, which was completely empty. "No," I growled. "I'm sorry, Derek. I wish it didn't have to be like this," he said right as the mech suddenly just shut down. I looked past it at the portal as it suddenly closed on its own. My eyes scanned the now ruined hangar, where they caught David stomping on the head of the Alpha in a welter of blood and brain matter. Then they caught Ricky, who very quickly finished off the Devastator by chopping its legs off. He turned to me, his eyes full of confusion. He wasn't there." "Yeah," I growled. That was when another call came on comms. "This is Marcus. Portals are clear. We need to take care of the rest of the infected." We would, after a few hours. The incident at Fort Quintus would claim the lives of over 2,000. We would go into a debrief following everything that happened. The debrief was that day, so we were all exhausted. Crier, myself, and the rest of the Hellhunters. My father had gathered us all. He stood at the front of the room with his arms crossed. Marcus sat at what would have been considered the teacher's desk. He sighed. "So," he started. Everyone in the rooms had gotten blood tests to make sure they weren't for guessing. We hadn't got a chance to do it to everyone on base. We would in the coming days. "There are a few things we need to go over. Number 1 is the Gunk Boy's computer." He breathed again. The messages asking for Kaiser's assassination were sent from a server that wasn't even from the same universe. I can remember that ringing an alarm bell or two. "Do we know who sent it?" asked David. "I'll get to that in a second, as it brings me to our next thing. We think Klein was using the attack on the base to cover up what he was actually doing." "Which is?" I asked. "Going through STD and Keeper files, particularly on Earth 4999, which is interesting because that's where the messages came from." "Earth 4999? I asked. "Why does that Earth sound familiar?" "The Multiversal Fighting Tournament. The first one to be exact. Well, it fought in the second too, but the older, angrier version of your father killed it in the first round," Marcus said. I narrowed my eyes. "Nexus Engagement Reconnaissance Response Operating System," Trent stated. Then it clicked. "Narrows?" I asked. My dad nodded. Narrows was an artificial intelligence drone operating system created by the United States military on that Earth, one that is said to have gained some form of sentience. And well, almost every Earth has a version of the movie Terminator. It's also not the only rogue AI in the multiverse. Narrows though, it's taken over at least 20 different Earths that the Keeper know of. "Why would Narrows want Kaiser dead?" asked Crier. "That's an excellent question to add to the list," answered Marcus. Trent sighed again. Questions. That seems like all we really have. Our number 1 priority though is finding Lilith." On the bits of film we got from the Banshee's helmet, Kaiser mentioned something about her wanting a realm. Well, at first, you'd think she meant Earth Prime. But I just talked to an old friend of ours. After years of no contact, we think or thought that she wants something from the realm. "The realm?" I asked. "It's what the inhabitants call purgatory," my father said as he hit a button. A holographic image appeared behind him. one of a sky at sunset. A massive obsidian pyramid floated above a thick forest. In the sky sat 2 moons, one yellow and one scarlet. The yellow one may be half the size of the scarlet one. I took a deep breath. This was taken by Ken Sullivan just 2 hours ago. "We're going to purgatory, aren't we?" I asked. My dad smiled. "There are millions of people there. Innocent people. They're not equipped to deal with Lilith, Erica, or the 7 deadly sins, or the massive fucking army of monstrosities she'd brought with her. So, we're not only sending you down there, but the entire 2nd Legion as well."